All right, we are live. Welcome into the first ever. I don't know if the show existed last year, Axton, to be honest, but welcome into the show, the Waiver Wire Show, brought to you by the IDP guys. I am Michael Sicoli. I'm one of your hosts, joined here by Axton Harding. How are you doing, Axton?
Hanging in there, man. Taking it day by day. About to have a baby soon, so got a lot going on.
Yeah, you're crushing it in life right now, my friend. Like a baby coming soon, the football season coming up. Like I feel like that is 10 out of 10 life right there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Things are playing out.
Things are playing out, yeah. And we're going to have things play out as well on Sunday this week. We're going to actually have football return this week. But before we get into that, I want to welcome everyone in because this is going to be such a great season. This show, which you might be wondering, this is the first time you're ever seeing it. You might be wondering what it is. If you see me on the StreamYard, normally it's From College to Combine if you watch that. Now, we're going to have this show going live every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Every single week, going through your waiver pickups, the guys that you should be knowing, how much you should be bidding on them, how much you should be prioritizing them, offense, defense. We're going to be there for all of that, answering your questions as well. Obviously, we're in a bit of week 0 right now, so it's not going to be a full. We don't have things that you should be starting up tomorrow, but we got plenty of names for each offense and defensive position coming up on this show. Before we do that, I just want to touch up on what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the Blake Martinez situation because Blake Martinez, when we get to linebackers, obviously he was a surprise cut last week. Somebody that we were talking about as a linebacker once, a top 10 guy because of his every down role. And that obviously is not going to be the case anymore. And we fielded a lot of questions with the IDP guys on whether, how that gets done, who fills in. I know we got a ton of stuff to be talking about on that end, as well as a couple of injury updates as well. But before we get too far into it, I just want to give a shout out to both the IDP guys. Obviously, that's where you're watching right now. If you're watching right now on YouTube and you're not subscribed, not sure why you're not, because there's some amazing content coming every single day, every single week. And just hit that subscribe. You can obviously follow Axton and I follow him at Harding_3. Follow myself at Michael__Sicoli. I have. Funny enough, that's a little bit off on the byline there, but it'll come up if you search it. Either way, very charismatic. So, lots of good stuff coming. So, you know what? You want to just hop right into it, actually. You want to just get straight into the waivers?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, let's start with the offensive side of the ball. Let's start with quarterbacks. So, obviously, right now, if you're entering week 1, you probably have your guy. You're probably starting him. So if you're in a deeper format and you took somebody and you're having second thoughts, maybe you took a Baker Mayfield on pure emotion of the comeback game, and maybe you're not feeling too good about that now. We got a couple names for you here. You kick us off, Axton. You give us the first start, first waiver pickup, first streamer of this show's history.
Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan would be a good play long term. I know probably I robbed that one from you. You had him on there, and I couldn't help but like him, man. He's one that I think is going to have an uptick, obviously, from his performance last year. He's got new and improved offense, and I think it's just going to fit well. He's going to be one that you can pick up on the low. He's only rostered in 43, almost 44% of your leagues, and first matchup is a prime candidate for him to set the tone for the season where he goes and plays at Houston. Like I say, you can pick him up for 0, the minimum. Sometimes I like to go 1 or 2 above the minimum in case somebody else puts in. But I think I don't think you have any trouble getting him.
Yeah, I like Matt Ryan a lot because I think he's going to be a good quarterback. He's going to be efficient. I think he's the guy that you could chart down for 260 and 2 more weeks than not. I think he's going to take care of the ball. We saw Carson Wentz take care of the ball. I think Matt Ryan's going to easily be able to do that. So I think Matt Ryan is a very, very safe start. Not somebody that I would be stashing because there's really no upside, but he could be a good play if you need to play somebody. Another name we want to throw out was Carson Wentz. That's somebody that was Axton's name, and I get it because that Jacksonville secondary still needs a lot of work. Now, Terry McLaurin is still that guy. Jahan Dotson is added to this team. Curtis Samuel is now healthy. I don't think a lot of people factor in Curtis Samuel's return. Again, if you're totally scrambling for a quarterback, I think you do worse than Carson Wentz this week. Maybe not in a DFS format because same with Matt Ryan because I think those guys don't have top 5 upside. But I think they're guys that can easily sneak away with 2 touchdowns and especially Carson Wentz, a guy that we really don't like because of just the stigma associated with Carson Wentz, you can get him at a pretty cheap discount, definitely for $0 on your waiver wire if it's on a super flex.
Absolutely. Up next, we got Joe Flacco. I like Joe Flacco for his first
Dumpster
week.
diving.
Yeah, that's pretty deep. It's pretty deep. But he was performing well in the preseason with those young receivers, and he's got more than enough talent to toss to and work with, and with experience under his belt. I think that revenge game, I think he's going to be looking to come out and kind of, set the tone for the Jets and really try to get them off to a good start or something, for when Zach Wilson comes back. So I kind of like him. He's only rostered in about 3% of your leagues. If you, absolutely need to pick up a quarterback, I think this week he could be a good play.
He looked really well. He played really well in the preseason. He also played really well in practice. So I can't bring myself to have the guts, honestly, but I do like the revenge game narrative.
A little bit of a desperation pick.
Let's move on to running backs, which if you're a 0 RB guy, you might actually be looking at some of these names, and some of these names might even be, guys you were looking at if you were doing that. I'll start with someone who doesn't fit any of that because he was a 4% owned player. Travis Homer is somebody that no one should really care about, but Pete Carroll does, because Pete Carroll is just a very weird coach. I'm not sure if Kenneth Walker is going to be out there week 1, and frankly, it doesn't matter for Travis Homer, a guy that should be the third down role. I think Travis Homer does get the third downs for a Geno Smith offense that might not be airing it out because it's a Geno Smith offense, and for a team that will be trailing this entire game against Denver. So positive game script. Rashad Penny doesn't catch passes. Kenneth Walker doesn't catch passes. Travis Homer could be a very sneaky PPR play. A guy that could see 5 catches, 60 yards, 5 catches, 55 yards, and maybe he squeaks in a touchdown. It might be good enough for a flex play if you're truly desperate.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Not a bad pick, especially like you said with that receiving upside. Penny's just going to be hitting it downhill most of the time, so he's going to could have opportunities close to the goal line or in the red zone at least. Next one here, we got J.D. McKissick. Another one of those kind of more valuable in your PPR formats, but with Brian Robinson out, with the terrible news, just kind of glad he's doing okay and that wasn't too severe.
Yeah.
But at least for the first few 4 or 5 weeks while he's out, J.D. McKissick could be a decent player, and especially playing at home week 1 against Jacksonville. He's rostered not quite half. About 47% of your leagues, you can get him for dirt cheap. I think he's going to find red zone targets as well, and one of those could likely lead into the end zone. He's heavily used out of the backfield in Washington, so at least for pass catching purposes.
Yeah, funny enough, I took a sports analytics class in my college. I go to Quinnipiac for everyone who doesn't know, but I took a sports analytics class last semester. I wrote a paper on J.D. McKissick and how important he is to his Washington offense. Mm-hmm. He's a great pass blocker. He's a good receiver. And I actually think Jacksonville wins that game, which will only help McKissick's game script. Now we have this last guy where we both wrote down 2 different names for it, and I think that might be symbolic of how hands-off we maybe should be for this, but I think it's worth taking a dart throw on either Mike Davis or Kenyon Drake. I'm more of the latter on Kenyon Drake. Both, obviously, Baltimore running backs now, neither of which were on the team last year. They faced the Jets in week 1, a team that we expect the Baltimore Ravens to roll over. And I like Kenyon Drake because I think Kenyon Drake is a better player. I think he's the guy that they would have signed in the first place if he was on the wire in the first place. He just got cut later in the offseason. Mike Davis, to me, is just nothing. He's a little bit too dusty for me, Axton, personally. And I might like him if the Ravens, he's good at pass blocking. He's a good pass blocker. And if the Ravens threw to their running backs, I might be more interested. But Lamar doesn't really do that. So I think Kenyon Drake has the higher chance of scoring a touchdown. And none of this matters if Dobbins is healthy week 1. But we're not really too sure about that one.
Yep, you're exactly right. I think my only preference there was just Mike Davis's maybe familiarity with the playbook, and I thought
Sure.
maybe Kenyon Drake might need a little bit more time to really get any kind of consistent role. But you're right, when he gets into 5-10 yards, you really don't need a whole lot of talent to just punch it into the end zone. You know what I mean? So I do agree. I think he might be able to find the end zone. He might be a better long term streamer there. Absolutely.
Yep. Let's slide into wide receivers now. And I'll take this quick moment to as well say that we have tight ends, obviously defensive linemen, linebackers, defensive backs coming up. We have all that detailed analysis as you've already heard. Coming up with that, as well as remember, subscribe if you haven't yet. And also you can submit comments in the chat. I'm obviously expecting a lot more of those next week when we have regular faults to refer to. It's always welcome. So wide receiver, I'll start with the guy that I have been kind of talking up. I love all the names that we have down here, by the way. I love the two that you have after this. But Marvin Jones, I think, is the first name I want to bring up just because he's facing Washington, the secondary that I think is really not that good. I don't think that's a good secondary. Cameron Curl could miss out that week 1 too. And he's just not – he's the red zone guy. He's not going to pop off anymore. That we know Marvin Jones is his primes in the past, but he's a guy that saw 15 red zone targets last year. He only scored on one of those. It's the type of thing that I really like for positive regression, especially when I think this Jacksonville offense takes a leap forward. So Marvin Jones, I think, is a very sneaky play. He was only rostered in 18% of sleeper leagues. So I do like him as a week 1 option that I think you could potentially see as a flex option all year.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to find him as his own kind of security blanket. He's going to be somebody that maybe whenever he doesn't know where to go, where's Marvin? You know what I'm saying? And Christian Kirk is talent, but I don't think he's going to be that one that's going to be that sure hands catch every. Exactly. You know, he's not going to be as reliable as what Marvin Jones has been.
Absolutely.
Up next, I put in Nico Collins. I like kind of his hype coming into the it's a moderate amount of hype, but not overhyped. You know what I mean? During this offseason, he's performed really well, and he's kind of slipping into that wide receiver 2 role behind Brandon Cooks. Week 1, they play Indianapolis at home. He's only rostered in about 29% of your leagues. I think Nico Collins could definitely be a nice streamer for this week with a bunch of upside if Davis Mills and him click and defenses are honed in on Brandon Cooks. Don't be surprised if Nico Collins slips around the backside and catches a few big plays. So, and again, I don't think you're gonna have to spend a whole lot on him on waivers. If you can't get him for free, do the minimum.
I've been saying all offseason that I love Nico Collins as a week 1 stash because he's a guy that Davis Mills targeted a lot. I don't have it on top of me right now. I think he saw around 8 targets a game through that 3 to 4 week stretch when he was playing with Davis Mills at the end of the year. And that's a good amount of targets for a guy that is huge. Nico Collins is a huge man. So if you give the man targets plus whatever he can provide in the red zone, I am somewhat intrigued by him. I really am. So I do like that as a stash. A guy that you know week 1 what you have. Mm-hmm. The last name, AJ Green. We're going a little bit older. We go old, young, old with this lineup here. Faces KC. KC obviously is going to – I think KC is going to put the works on Arizona this week. I really do. And I think that means that AJ Green will have a very good game script. And even if he doesn't, AJ Green is the big body guy in that offense. Again, you're seeing a theme here with all 3 of our big body guys. When you're streaming a wide receiver, we want touchdowns. That's what we're looking for. So AJ Green has the rare chance of not just being that, but he could see volume as well. DeAndre Hopkins out. Rondale Moore is nicked up as he always is because he's a tiny little guy. And there's just a lot to like with AJ Green. We're not going to see 150 yards from AJ Green. He's not the explosive talent he was in Cincinnati, but he could see enough volume and he could score a touchdown because the Cardinals will still put up points. I think AJ Green's a very nice play at a 21% roster ship for sure.
Even if he only gets 40 yards and a touchdown, he's doing you service for that week.
That's a flex. That's a flex right there. Yeah, it's a flex. Oh, that's what we're looking for here. So tight ends, and I'll give everyone a quick spoiler right now. you're not gonna find George Kittle among these bunches probably. I don't think we're finding the next Travis Kelce in these, but we're looking for, again, the touchdown guys, the guys that play the matchup that you guys don't know about, but maybe, or you guys obviously probably know because you guys are all listening to the IDP guys, obviously, so you know what you're doing. But you want these guys. Let's start with one. I'll start with Hayden Hurst, a guy that I literally acquired in trade not 30 minutes ago, because I think Hayden Hurst is a talented tight end that has had a ridiculous amount of tough breaks in his career, from injuries to more injuries to situation of just shipping teams, getting shipped out of Baltimore. Now he finds himself in Cincinnati, and the team tried like hell to replace him, from from Gronk to OJ Howard to Devin Asiasi. Ultimately, they ended up with Hayden Hurst as their guy. The Athletics beat reporter for the Cincinnati Bengals has talked him up quite a lot, and I think that Hayden Hurst is a guy that will score a touchdown against Pittsburgh this week. I'm not convinced that Pittsburgh has solved their linebacker troubles yet, and I don't think that the safeties is going to be that great either. DeMonte Kazee is missed, and that he's going to miss at least the first 4 games on the IR. I think Hayden Hurst is a nice pickup as a potential Dawson Knox-esque type of player this year.
Yeah, I like it. Next we got Gerald Everett. I've liked this move since I saw that he got signed or that he signed with the Chargers this offseason. He's a good streamer this week for me. He plays against Las Vegas. The Raiders allowed about 11 points per game to tight ends last year, and I don't see that they've made too many changes to their linebacker core, so I would imagine Gerald Everett's he could find himself open in the middle of the field quite often. He's only rostered in about 30% of your leagues, and I'd imagine you wouldn't have to pay a whole lot for him on waivers. I don't imagine a lot of people are going after him, but if you need a streamer for week 1 tight end, Gerald Everett ought to be fine.
He's hurt a lot of people in the past, and that's why you're able to get him for free. And I like that pick, though, because, again, with him and Hayden Hurst, the common thing there is we want the Chargers offense, we want the Bengals offense. Let's get the guy that will be getting receiving snaps with both teams, and maybe they find the end zone because those teams are going to be living in that area. I'm going to let you double up on this one because I can't be – Austin Hooper is this name.
Not in on Austin
and
Hooper.
I'll let you run it through because that – I made fun of a friend of mine relentlessly when he took him last night. So go for it.
No, I just kind of like him, and I haven't really favored him in any of the situations he's kind of been in. But where he's at now in Tennessee, where you got Robert Woods coming off an ACL there, and Treylon Burks is going to need at least to start the season. Most rookies, with regard to your Jamar Chases and Justin Jeffersons, are going to need some time to acclimate. And I think that Hooper could find himself being a steady red zone target for Ryan Tannehill. He excels in those short 5, 10, 15-yard passes. He's not much for slinging it downfield. And I think if Hooper can find those open spots in the field, especially against the New York Giants defense in week 1 at home, I don't mind picking him up for a flyer for 1 week.
I do like the matchup. I will say that. I do like the matchup, and I do think the Titans should handily beat the Giants. So I do like the narrative there, and I do like the vacated targets. He's just so unexciting to watch. I get it. I do definitely get it. Let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, the IDP side of the ball. Let's start with defensive linemen. And obviously the news of the week, and I'll start off with this as well. If you're not subscribed to the IDP Guys newsletter, something I put out every single Wednesday, it will come out tomorrow. There might be deeper dives on some of these names as well, especially this name we're going to talk about right now. So follow my Twitter. I have the link there to subscribe at Michael Sicoli. But the third name is Harold Landry, defensive end, kind of linebacker, but defensive end for the Tennessee Titans, who had a huge breakout season last year. Unfortunately, towards ACL last week, which sucked, just was the worst thing. I really feel bad for the guy. But obviously, we have to talk with the next man up. And 2 names have kind of surfaced, and one of which I'll talk about one of them. Axton, you'll get the other one. Bud Dupree is the first one I want to bring up because I think Bud Dupree is the biggest beneficiary. I think he's the guy that they signed initially to, still the same regime that brought him in. and he's just dealt with some injury issues. I think he is the best talented edge that they have, and that's Bud Dupree. The guy that Pittsburgh desperately needed. He didn't really do that great without an opposing edge alongside him. So I don't think anyone's going to replicate what we saw last year with Harold Landry. I don't think you pick someone up and you find that answer. But I think anyone who's going to provide week-to-week value, or at the very least splash plays, I think it would be Bud Dupree. But there is another name that I know a lot of people are hyped about, right, Axton?
Yeah, Rashad Weaver. Rashad Weaver is the one that's kind of looking to come in and fill in for him as well. And Justin Fry. Justin Fry, a fellow IDP.
Justin Fry, yes.
Did he not? I blanked on his last name. I only go by his first name. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he did a little tidbit on this, and he was kind of he was hyping up Rashad Weaver come in and replace him as his top pick. I'm not sure if he was. He's coming off ACL injury.
He's coming off an ACL injury. He was a 4th-round pick last year. Yeah, it's the type of thing where this regime drafted him to be an asset, and he obviously just might be a year off because of the injury. Obviously Bud Dupree has had his chances. He's had his chances. I'm taking the guy. I want to go with the guy that I think has a better chance to.
Right. That was also something that Justin had mentioned, is that he likes him, but only for maybe deeper leagues. So I think you're right in that Bud Dupree might be more of like an immediate value to come in and that role.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to note that I don't think anyone's doing what Harold Landry did last year. Harold Landry was great last year, the perfect fit for this defense. I don't think they have a replacement really for him on the roster. The other defensive lineman I want to bring up, this is really deep. I will note that this is not someone you're probably playing week 1. It might be something you're looking for. But that's Julian Okwara of Detroit, someone I mentioned in the newsletter about a month or two ago. Obviously, he's coming off the major injury, but he's somebody that they wanted to use as an off-ball linebacker in a way. They were going to move him a little bit more off the edge and a little bit more from defensive end to a bit more linebacker hybrid. And that means he could be getting sacks and a big upsurge in tackles. And they really like him in Detroit. They made a concerted effort to make him involved. He's ahead of his timeline. He might be back for week 1. If he is, he might not be full strength. But he's a name I want to bring up now because I think if he gets that off-ball hybrid role, that's a really nice sneaky value when you can play him as a defensive end, especially in leagues that will be obviously tackle-centric, which I imagine most of us are playing in anyway. He plays Philly week 1. Again, I don't want to play him in his first week when he's up against the grain of coming back, but he's somebody I want to at least bring up so we have the name in our head.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, up next, we got B.J. Hill. He's a defensive tackle for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think this is his second year in the league, and he had a pretty impressive first year where he got 50 tackles and 5.5 sacks. Actually, this be his third year now. But he had an exceptional second year last year, and I think this is going to be more of like a week 1 streamer kind of option where he's playing a poor offensive line in Pittsburgh, and he's playing at home. Matter of fact, Pittsburgh's offensive line has a PFF ranking of the 30th in the league. So I think him, Trey Hendrickson, and all those guys on the defensive line are going to eat and be putting a lot of pressure on Mitch Trubisky in this game.
B.J. Hill is such an interesting name, and I'll bring this up what Dynasty Santa, our guy Steve Tommaso, brought up. And there, you're obviously not going to be starting, Rashad Weaver, but he's somebody you're keeping an eye on. I think it honestly applies for Bud Dupree as well. That if you want to stash him, see what you have week 1, go for it. Nobody should be rushing to be playing these Tennessee edges because expecting them to do plug and play what Harold Landry did again, not really realistic. But let's move on to linebackers. Again, we talked about Blake Martinez at the top of the show. Obviously no longer with the Giants. Who is that replacement? There's 2 names I want to bring up. Obviously, Tay Crowder's the incumbent. He's the guy that you probably should be picking up right now if you haven't already. The guy that should be, despite how bad he really was last year, not that great of a player. He got the role, and he probably will get it again. Because this Giants linebacker core, they tried to revamp it, but they really didn't. They brought in Darian Beavers in the 6th round. He tore his ACL, unfortunately, in the preseason as well. So Tay Crowder's kind of the last man standing, but I do want to bring up one other name. That's Micah McFadden, 4th-round rookie. I don't think he's going to be anything great. He didn't wow or anything. He was a day 3 pick, but Tay Crowder is not that good. Like, I think that's something we all need to remember, is that he has a valuable role, but that doesn't mean that he's going to be holding onto that role for the entire season. So Tay Crowder, pick him up. He could be a week 1 play even, especially on short notice. But I think the Giants really revamped this and just play Xavier McKinney and Julian Love in the box more than we even saw last year.
Right. So you want to temper your expectations with Tay Crowder in the long term. Absolutely.
Yes.
Up next is someone I've kind of taken I've had my eye on all my IDP leagues, is Pete Werner. He's a 2nd-year linebacker for New Orleans. He's kind of, if I remember right, he was kind of riddled a little bit with injury, or he just maybe didn't play quite a consistent role, but he's now got that groin injury is my only concern. If he can get over that hurdle of the injury, he had an outstanding rookie season going for him, even with maybe not a full snap count, or he wasn't seeing a full game. He was just kind of spot playing and things like that. So I think if he can get over this hurdle and get some real consistent playing time, I like him for even a season-long stash. Again, with the injury, just groin injuries kind of tend to linger. You just kind of hope it wasn't near as severe. So week 1, they play Atlanta. I think with that, with the new quarterback in that offense, I think he could definitely cause some ruckus and just putting some pressure on the quarterback and fluster those young receivers. So I kind of like him for a little bit of a stash, and you really won't have to pay a whole lot for him. I think he's probably being avoided right now on waivers for whatever reason.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the Saints. Pete Werner and Michael Walker. I feel like we should have them on a T-shirt together as off-season like truthers, because I don't think I ever saw like more loud and happy group of people rooting for a player this offseason than Pete Werner and Michael Walker. But yeah, he still has that role as the linebacker 2 for the Saints. Demario Davis is I like Demario Davis, but Demario Davis, we know what he is, and he's also a really good coverage player. So Pete Werner's playing more of the run stuffing role. That is a valuable position. And speaking of run stuffing roles, that's the Atlanta linebacker situation. Again, speaking of Michael Walker, I'm talking about Rashaan Evans. I just threw 7,000 names at once within 20 seconds there. But we've been trying to figure out who's going to inherit the Atlanta linebacker role after what Foye Oluokun did last year. He's obviously now in Jacksonville. He put up 190 tackles. I think Rashaan Evans is the guy that's going to be the biggest beneficiary of that. They went out and brought him in. The guy that was in Tennessee with this Dean Pease defense that was the Tennessee system, and Mike Vrabel, obviously. So Tennessee coaching staff comes to Atlanta. A year goes by, and then they go in and bring back a linebacker that was in their system. To me, that means they're going to use the guy that they think is going to be the best fit. He didn't play in the last week of preseason because he's going to be their starter. It's going to be Michael Walker, and it's going to be Rashaan Evans. And if we know one thing about Rashaan Evans, is that he is a liability in coverage. So to me, Rashaan Evans will be playing the run-stuffing role, especially when the Falcons inevitably fall behind in this game. That he's going to be the guy that's going to be hunting, sent on blitzes, linebacker blitzes. I like Rashaan Evans as at the very least a 4-week fill-in. And we have to remember Michael Walker is a special team ace. That's really what he's been. His defensive starts are very limited. Rashaan Evans is the guy that has the most playtime here, with Deion Jones now on the IR. So I think Rashaan Evans shouldn't be on any wires. I think everyone should be picking him up and stashing him, and I've seen him go really late in drafts to the point where that could be the case. So Rashaan Evans, name to keep in mind now in Atlanta.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. If he's going to be taking that run stuffing role, that leaves a lot of opportunity for high tackle games and really pick up where Deion Jones kind of left off last year. So yeah, excellent. Now let's move on to defensive backs. You want to talk a little bit about the Cam Curl?
Yes. So Cam Curl is a name that will be in this newsletter this week because I have to take some more time and dig into that because it's a weird saga. But he was originally expected to probably miss the opener. Now he returned to practice. So Cam Curl might be back this week. of which we don't need to be talking about any replacement. And truthfully, I didn't really see one on the roster that I would have been too excited about. I think it would have just been upticks for everyone around him and downgrade for the defense in general, because Cam Curl is a good player and I like him a lot. But that him himself he shouldn't be on any wires. I think Cam Curl could have a really good season this year. But I'll transition that into our first defensive back that I think people should be rostering. Somebody that our guy at Master IDP, Leo, has been talking up all offseason, and for good reason. Jalen Pitre in Houston, the number 37 overall pick of this year's draft, is a good player. Is a really good player. And I don't put much stock in CBS Sports, not to rule myself out of a future job there or anything, but they almost put him on their all 53 team for this offseason. And I don't really get that. But Jalen Pitre is a very good player who's had a very good offseason, who is a versatile talent in college, and now he's being that same versatile talent for the Texans. Justin Reed is also gone. There's just a huge need for playmakers in Houston. Just playmakers. Players that are talented. Just talent, Like, just that. That's all. So that means Pitcher is going to be getting a lot of snaps right off the bat. Plays Atlanta. I think there's a lot of things to like about Pitcher as a season-long asset, let alone as a week one play. So defensive back is a tough thing to stash because it's such a deep position. But Pitcher is kind of one of those guys that I'm trying to make the exception for if I can, if he's not drafted already.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Next up, we got Xavier Woods. Now, I was in line with my earlier mention of Justin's article, which everybody ought to go check out for your IDP waiver wire editions for week one. He mentioned Xavier Woods and threw out a good point where Carolina plans to, or they made a designation for Jeremy Chin to kind of play more of a if I read that correctly, he wants to stay in a more singular role, leaving Xavier Woods to kind of fill the role that he was in last year. And if Xavier Woods is going to get a high snap count and he's going to be playing a lot more this year, against a Cleveland offense, week one is prime opportunity for him to really come out and show that he belongs in that role and say, Jeremy, Chin, you don't have to worry about covering the whole defense. I can take it from here. You can really sit back and excel at what you're doing.
The Cleveland offense is just a really good one to target as a defensive player. Like, between the potential for turnovers and the potential for just tackles on a very run-heavy team, I like it as a week one play for sure, and I think there is season-long upside. I'm not counting on the latter, but I think there's definitely good week one, definitely a good week one option if you're totally streaming defensive back in a deeper format. And I'll throw out a cornerback here with our last defensive back name. That'll be Jalen Mills. Now, I'm not a huge fan of rostering cornerbacks if I can avoid it, obviously, because we prefer the safeties, we prefer the guys that are getting more tackles. But Jalen Mills is going to get a ridiculous amount of snaps. Because if anyone's followed the Patriots beat this offseason, this cornerback group is a little bit shaky. They were signed Malcolm Butler. He was released with an injured designation. They signed, oh my goodness, I'm forgetting the name, but some first name Smith. They signed someone else. He got released. Terrence Mitchell. They signed Terrence Mitchell. Terrence Mitchell got cut. They are trying to figure out the slot corner position between Miles Bryant and Jonathan Jones. It's a mess. But Jalen Mills is going to get a lot of snaps. That's a good start. And he's also not that great of a player. So I think he's going to get targets thrown at him. He's going to be going against the number one. There's going to be, again, targets going at him. It's a good opportunity for interceptions and tackles from a cornerback perspective. And it's also easy to forget that Jalen Mills, I don't expect this to happen, but Jalen Mills has played safety before. That's in his realm of outcome. Not every cornerback can say that. So I think Jalen Mills is an interesting target against Miami this week. I'm not even entirely sure who he matches up against because Jalen Mills is a big guy. I could go against Tyreek, but Tyreek against Jalen Mills would be a big mismatch, as would Jalen Waddle and as would Cedric Wilson. So maybe Erica Zukama, 4th round rookie. Maybe that's what we see. But maybe Mike Gesicki, maybe one of the tight ends. Either way, Jalen Mills is an interesting target. A guy to keep your eye on, especially in cornerback leagues. And that's it. That's what we've got for this week. That is our waiver wire show. And I appreciate everyone for sticking through because we had a pretty steady viewer count throughout this entire longer episode. We're going to be going at this every single week, every single Tuesday, 12 o'clock Eastern. Again, remember to subscribe to the IDP guys on YouTube at IDP guys, as well as follow them on Twitter because that's where a lot of the content comes out to. And of course, look at this guy over here. Look at his almost father right here. Give this man a follow at Harding_3. Definitely well worth the follow, as well as myself at Michael_Sicoli right down there. You'll see it. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you guys next week, Tuesday. I don't even have the date off the top of my head, but after week 1, we'll have a week of football to talk about. Have a good week. Have a good day. Good luck in your week 1 matchups. See ya. Have a good one.
Thanks, guys.